studied abroad in Japan for a semester.
Year.
A year. And then he did an awful lot of traveling and did some incredibly interesting things during those travels. And so we're in store for a treat, I think. So we'll get started.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to my presentation today. So basically, my presentation will not be mainly consisting of my experience in Japan studying there. It will be mostly relating to how I developed my idea of how I can contribute to advancing peace in the world. And that, my reasoning basically derives from my experience going to Tanzania and initiating my own internet cafe business there, studying abroad in Japan in an environment that I can get exposed to a lot of different culture through international relations program and Ritsumeikan University, and at last traveling to 20 different countries around the world. And before I start my presentation, I want to mention that a lot of the ideas and concepts that I would give criticism to, maybe a lot of you might not agree to or take offense to. I really apologize for that, but this is really going to consist a lot of what I was thinking, what I think. So please excuse me for that, and I really hope that you'll enjoy. Okay, so before I studied abroad, I believed that I wanted to become a social entrepreneur. And basically, social entrepreneurs are people that seek to solve social problems in certain regions in the world using community business. And this usually pertains to people that's trying to solve social problems involving poverty. So I'll give you several examples. For example, Mohammed Yunus on the left, he's one of the most famous social entrepreneurs that created microfinancing bank in Bangladesh, known as the Grameen Bank. And he is credited for providing loans for really small entrepreneurs that cannot afford to borrow loans from bank, because usually bank only gives loans to corporations or people that they can trust and have income come back to them after they invest. So it was difficult for people to invest into capital, start their own small business, and have substantial income that can sustain their life throughout their life. This person is a famous entrepreneur in Japan, she is Eriko Yamaguchi. She initiated a bag manufacturing business in Bangladesh using a plant called jute, which is specifically grown in Bangladesh, and her bag that she makes is sold in Japan. So I really thought that these entrepreneurs are really amazing, fascinating, because they go to a different country and create their own business for the sake of betterment of the community and the region. So this is what I wanted to be at that time, and this is what I basically wrote on my scholarship essays that I had to write to get scholarships from Illinois College, several faculties, and also outside sources. Please go to the next slide. Okay, so this is also pre-departure, and I really need to mention this internship that I experienced before going to study abroad. And I'm mentioning this because the internship experience here in this organization called Congo Justice has become the significant core of my value that I hold until now. So let me give you a brief explanation of this organization. This organization is based in Las Vegas, and it specializes in prevention of sex trafficking. And I went through an internship for them in the summer of 2015. Sex trafficking is basically a commercial exploitation done to people in form of forced prostitution. And this is an issue that's happening within domestic realm, which happens in Las Vegas. A lot of young children are kidnapped from within the state and exploited in the sex industry. And the most significant achievement of Congo Justice is that they have led a civil rights movement in the city, and which have led to politically outlawing sex trafficking in 2014. So I'll give a brief explanation of the situation. Prostitution, it still goes on, but it's one of the biggest black market in Las Vegas that actually brings a lot of tourists for this purpose as well. And it's a bigger multi-billion dollar industry that is actually bigger than the drug trafficking that happens in the state. Please go on to the next. So a lot of people think that prostitutes are prostitutes because they choose to be, they voluntarily do it. But in reality, what the situation in Las Vegas was that there was a lot of, actually most of the people were involuntary doing it. They were being exploited. And how that happens is pimps, okay, we call guys who's trying to target young children to exploit pimps, basically. And they target young children that come from a home with several problems, including domestic violence, drug and substance abuse, and also divorce background. Basically, making the children feel uncomfortable being at home. They don't feel safe, they don't feel love from their parents, and they basically become runaways or start to go out. And that's where the pimps target, trying to be in a closer relationship with these kind of children, so that eventually they can win their emotion, make them dependent emotionally, and eventually exploit them in the later on in their life. So yeah, that's after a grooming period and ends with exploitation. Next slide, please. So the approach, the problem was that a lot of people were not aware of this issue that's happening in Las Vegas. And there has been more than 50 organizations, including religious affiliate organizations, philanthropic activities done by companies, and also government activities to prevent this issue. But none of them were actually able to solve this problem. And moreover, none of the organizations cooperated with each other. And this is the key aspect that was considered as problem. It's really similar to how in the United Nations, states cannot cooperate because all of the states cannot give up their sovereignty, or they act upon the interest of protecting their own state's interest, whether it's politics or economics. And Congo Justice basically unified these organizations by negotiating and having discussion to create events together and raise awareness together to raise the demand of civilians in Las Vegas to have change actually taking place. So this was the civil rights movement that actually led to political change in Las Vegas as well. And my contribution in the organization was that I fundraised money for its activities. And this internship, this involvement that I did was really significant because I did not sell anything in order to find donors, donate for this cause. I spoke to all sorts of people, including owners of business and also workers, and sometimes even people on the street, and just simply asking for donation for Congo Justice's activity as I explained it to people. And basically it really made me acquire the ability to win trust from people, acquire the ability to want to make people cooperate or contribute to what I'm doing, which is not for the sake of my own benefit, but for the benefit of a whole community. And this is important because money is really important to people's life, and making them want to sacrifice what they earned out of their effort and time is really significant because it's a form of overcoming individual self-centered intention to make sacrifice for the sake of community. And after this experience, I was really confident that I can make cooperation happen wherever I go and be able to unify wherever I go. And this, I believe that I can use this ability and go to an impoverished area in the world to be a social entrepreneur, basically. So I decided to try that after I entered for this organization. And that's why I went to Tanzania. So please go to the next slide. So before I went to Japan, I went to Tanzania for 1 month for the purpose of solely challenging on entrepreneuring there. Yes. So, please go to the next slide. In Tanzania, it's located on the eastern side of Africa. It's one of the most impoverished area in the world. Most people live under $1.25 a day. People are usually sellers on the street. 80% of the people in Tanzania are sellers on the street selling products that are imported from first world countries. And a lot of the imported products are also used, such as clothes, which is the biggest market in Tanzania. And this is what the real condition. There's no industrialization occurring. There's no factories. There's no service business. There's no industry that's making the country independent. Basically, it's a dependent form of economy, depending on imports from other country, and that's how the economy runs. So most people are really trying to sell things on the street, but a lot of people, most people don't make enough money to eat enough in their daily lives. And what I was shocked the most was seeing the harsh conditions due to the poverty. And I could name so many, but it's really unsanitized. The utility and infrastructure is not existent, and there are so many diseases and sickness that's going around. And what was shocking to me the most was seeing people hungry all the time. I've seen so many beggars on the street, and to understand the feeling of these people, I also made effort. I, for example, decided to fast for 3 whole days, not eating anything, to understand the feeling of being hungry. And what I got out of that was people start to become less human-like. People start to want desire for food so much, or trying to feed themselves so much that they would do anything. That leads to crimes, and that leads to a lot of stealing and criminal activity that is really existent in Tanzania. And so, so this was an organization called CAFLO that I made connection in Tanzania with. And their basic activity was to provide shelter and minor education for orphans. That was in Tanzania. So I became friend with the manager of this organization, and basically what he was saying is that he is lacking fundings to do so many things. He said he wants to do this and that. He wants to do this microfinancing project. He wants to provide textbooks for children, or he wants to provide more shelter for these children that's still unable to be taken care of, provide food, and so on. There's so many things that nonprofit organization wanted to do. And I knew that helping this organization is not going to help the poverty in Tanzania at all, but I felt that at least I can do something by initiating a business here, which the profit that the business would make will go to its activity. It would help at least the children that is being taken care of this organization. Please go to the next slide. And I was fortunate enough to meet this guy. His name is Godfrey. He was a university graduate in Tanzania, which was, he majored in computer science. So he was one of the very few university grad in Tanzania, and he had the business. He had an idea of wanting to make an internet cafe, and he had this idea for a long time, but it was really difficult to make that happen because there's a cost to it, obviously. But I wanted to make that idea come into a reality, and I really felt that meeting him, I feel like, okay, this is what I need to do. So I decided to make research on what I need to provide, what kind of capitals I need, what kind of market exists. So I did from the all the process I learned from marketing class in IC, I really applied into real life. Please go on to the next. And basically, I found this place next to school. There was an open place that I can put a store where I can start an internet cafe. And basically, the cost was about $1,000 USD. And $1,000 USD is big money in Tanzania, because most people, like I said, live under $1 a day, and $1,000 is kind of close to the annual income of a professor in Tanzania would make. Yeah, so it was a big money, but I basically. If it's $1,000, I could have provided that from my own pocket because at that time I had a lot of scholarship money. But I did not want to do that because I felt that the more important thing is that I make the people of Tanzania get involved in this. So I did this, basically I used my fundraising skill that I acquired in Las Vegas to collect money from within Tanzania. So I wrote a translated proposal of my initiative to start a business. There's not much saying, it just says, please make donation for cash flow, and its activity involves orphan care and so on. And I just went to the cities of Dar es Salaam, the central city of Tanzania, and basically visited business and offices and any people that I can meet to ask for donations, ask for fundings to initiate this project that I wanted to do. So I took about a week to collect $1,000. So I was able to collect. But one of the difficulty was obviously language barrier, and also the fact to deal with the fact that people are unwilling to cooperate, because money is really precious, obviously, and it's really difficult to consider about the whole community when you're really busy on your own and taking care of your own family and maybe people around you. But please go on to the next slide, sorry. I believe that it was, I was able to do this because I was able to practice unconditional positivity, which is to return always with positive mindset of giving care and having no self-centered emotion. So when people basically disrespect me or said no or did not want to give understanding to me, I basically decided to forgive, stay humble, be grateful of any kind of donation that I receive, and unconditionally believe that I can do this. And basically, I was really blessed to find people that gave support to me, and most of the people were Tanzanian people in the country. So I found that to be a really great achievement. Please go on to the next one. And this is the money of Tanzania. Just a picture.
Is it all the money you collected?
Yeah, basically. all in paper, all in front of paper. okay, yeah. Also, one of the most shocking thing was that so Godfrey, right? This guy, he said he'll do business with me, and he was cooperating with me to. He was with me all the time when we were trying to make a business proposal, and he was doing all the translation work for when I was doing interview to other corporation. When I wanted to know about the condition of the market, because there were other internet cafes that existed in Tanzania at that time already. But once it became the time of collecting money, he gave up on the first day because it was so difficult. It was so difficult to make people want to give fundings, give donation. So he basically said it's impossible, and I tried to convince him to keep believing, but he basically gave up, and I was on my own for a whole week. But after I collected the money, I brought the money to him, and I told him that he can help me on finding where to get all the supplies. So he really helped me on getting to the workshop, a wood shop that makes table and chair, finding the used computer, and also he knows about computer science, so he knows how to connect with the internet and so on. So he was an essential help for me. I was shocked. It was hard to deal with the kind of a betrayal that I had to endure, but I really thank him for helping me all the way to the end. And finally, I was able to make an internet cafe with 4 computers. And from the first day, a lot of children came to basically play with the computers, explore the computers. Also, photo service was really popular among the students because they wanted to take picture and print it out. It's something we take it for granted, but they don't get to do that kind of, they don't get to take selfies there, so it's a really innovative thing for them. Yeah, basically this was what I did in Tanzania, and basically after this I had so much thought, and please go on to the next slide. I basically understand the limit of social entrepreneur. I was really happy that kids were happy, and the owner of the manager of Cashflow was so happy that I created this company for Cashflow, and the sustainable income will be given to them, and Godfrey has a place to manage this business. But basically what I did is so small compared to the problems that the country as a whole, the Tanzania country as a whole carries. So I really thought that there's a limit to what small business creation can do. And it does not fundamentally solve the problem of poverty because the main cause of poverty, I recognize that it was due to corruption that's happening in the country. Basically, it's a poor leadership, self-centered politician allowing their country to be exploited by a first world country. There's so many examples I can name, but one of them is that in Tanzania, a guy explained to me that a Chinese company is making a lot of, well, I don't want to say invasion, but a lot of Chinese company come into Tanzania to buy Tanzanian land and take a lot of mineral and oil resources that would allow them to basically take them all back cheaply to their homeland. And politicians are the one that's allowing them to do with the money that Chinese companies give to them. And this is basically drainage of resource that could be used to industrialize the Tanzanian economy, but basically politicians don't do that because they're more concerned about the wellness of their own, and there's also lack of human resources that's able to do that. And secondly, there are so many wars that's going on, especially in the central area of Africa, but also, as you know, Middle Eastern country too. But for this, there are so many rebel groups that causes war to take control over resources, and first world countries are highly involved in funding these rebel groups to take control of the land to gain the mineral resource, which we all use in computers and laptops, because it's fight over resource. The countries does it so that they can make sure they would take less cost in collecting the materials for, regardless of the sacrifices of child labor that happens, and genocide, mass killing and rapes that happens all over Congo. So, in this kind of situation, of course, there's conflicts, and poverty will not be solved because there's no way country can be industrialized and people can have a sustainable life this way. Please go on to the next. The next one. Yes, so that's why I was also having really critical idea toward international organization, because what they do is basically they spend a lot of money, and a lot of people work hard into helping people in the third world country, but their approach is only on the surface level. Just providing medical aids and giving certain amount of food and supplies. It's going to help the people immediately that needs cure for disease or that's in hunger, but it's nothing sustainable, and also it's not going to solve the fundamental problem of poverty that's existing. So it's nothing done to the core of the problem. And I also thought this has a huge hypocrisy that first world country has, because first world countries are the one that's causing war. They're the one that's exploiting resources from third world country, and they're trying to appeal to the citizen by saying that we're doing this kind of good stuff, these kind of philanthropy, these kind of foreign aids to the third world countries for the development of these countries. So and I was really mad that a lot of people don't recognize this, and basically my conclusion that I came at this point was that, please go to the next one, was that I need to somehow initiate a revolution in poor countries somehow to overcome a corrupted regime. And that's the only way I could do it, right? So I was like, I was seriously thinking I'll create a nonprofit organization in a developing country that raise awareness about the injustice happening in demand for change. So basically I wanted to become someone like Martin Luther King or Gandhi that would raise the citizen to raise the demand of change against the injustice and overthrow the corrupted regime to form a more a government that serves the interests of people. And with this kind of mindset, I went to Japan finally. In Japan, I was having a lot of fun too, but in the back of my mind, I was always thinking of seeking for prospective partners that would like to fight for human rights with me. So I was talking to a lot of people, especially with professors and people engaged in international relations education, and a lot of what we call circles, like clubs and activities that involve studying and volunteering in the developing country, which was really popular in Ritsumeikan University. A lot of people likes to go to volunteer to Southeast Asian country, and I was really hoping to find people that would like to work with me. But everybody thought I was crazy, so this did not work. So I came up with a new strategy. I decided to job hunt in Japan for a little bit. So I was thinking, okay, maybe I can work for about 3 or 4 years in Japan and learn more about the corporate structure, learn more about how business work and how money flows, and make myself more proficient in understanding what it means to create a business or create an organization, manage an organization. So I had the chance of really applying to big organizations, really big institutions, companies in Japan that is well known due to the opportunities I had there. But this was also a time I realized how Japanese society, which I was really loving until then, and I still do, but I realized the negative side of it, and there's like a huge system that enforces capitalistic value on people. So people are all really forced to have good status in their life in order to maintain their face. And if people cannot maintain a good status, it's like a really devastating situation, because people will really look you down for not having the right status. So that will be the cause of social problems in Japan, which involves problems like suicide, overworking, and a lot of family breakdowns, and people not getting married. So there's a lot of problems that happens due to the pressure of society, the stress that exists in Japanese society. And people see Japan as a country with a huge wealth, and it really is. It's so convenient and everything is so clean. It was completely the opposite of Tanzania. Everything was so wealthy, and but that I really realized that didn't mean that people were happy at the same time. It was not really proportional to people's happiness. So I started to think that maybe even if I were to make people of third world country get into a condition of wealth, would that really mean I was able to make people gain happiness in their life? So I started to question that. And as I learned more, I recognized that corporate definition of international aid and philanthropy is really based on capitalistic ideals, which is based on investments, such as investments, which is like investing into infrastructures or several industry in Southeast Asia, and contributing to development and providing job opportunities and selling more first world products, which are all important to people's life, but at the same time, it's all based on capitalistic mind, which is not the solution to what would make people happy, in my opinion. And also, their foreign aids, the way they define foreign aids, all of them sounded like an exploitation to me. Like I said, it was like I gave the example of corporation that goes to Tanzania, and also there's also a lot of opinions saying that foreign investment causes dependency in the economy of developing country, and also basically that's what I concluded from job hunting experience. So I realized that this is not what I want to do. So I quit job hunting and decided to travel the world to figure out what I can do. So I went to Southeast Asia, please keep going, next slide. Europe, this is China, keep going, Europe, and I could talk so much about this, but for the sake of time, I'm just gonna keep going. And Middle East. So Middle East was, let's stop here. Middle East was really significant experience for me, and the most important thing I learned from all these travels was that, you can go down already, was that I really realized the position, the country I am from, how American foreign affair is in reality to people's mind. I realized that I was thinking that I was really open-minded, but I was still looking at the whole world and the perspective of Americans. And it really comes down to simple things like we think the terrorists of Islamic terrorist group are terrorists to us, but for them, American involvement in the whole world is a huge terrorist activity. So I spoke to a lot of people in the Middle East because I traveled to places like Palestine, Israel, Iran, Turkey, and Egypt. And basically, most of the people had so much negative opinion about America. And that was due to America's, how America always allies with one side. When there's always a war happening over within a country, whether it's an ethnic conflict or conflict between different religion, America allies with one side so that they can eventually take control of the regime, have the regime to take control of the country, and that would allow America to take control of the resource and politics, expand its political influence in the region. And that, for example, that happens in relation between Sunni and Shia, and also the Syrian conflict we're aware of. A Syrian person, I didn't go to Syria, but I spoke to a Syrian refugee in Switzerland, and she has basically told me that whether you believe this is true or not, in America we believe that Assad is a really bad ruler that's killing a lot of people in Syria, but she, as a Syrian, says that Assad is not a bad ruler. Actually, it's a false rumor that American media is portraying on American people to basically brainwash the people to think that America is doing something for the sake of peace in the world. But in reality, it's happening because America wants to gain control of the oil resource happening in Syria. And there's no proof that this is, this could be right, what media could be saying is true, but from, all the opinions that's happening in the Middle East, it was starting to become really hard to believe that what's said on the media by the American television company was really biased in a lot of ways to favor the support of American people and having more nationalism for their country. Please go on. So yeah, the same with the Israel conflict, because keep going. So I basically figured that United Nations as well is the fundamental reason why United Nations cannot be functional, because states all act upon their own interest. So they cannot give up, if they cannot give up their sovereignty, if they value their own state more than the world, serving the whole world, there is never going to be an agreement. And that was it really comes to the fundamental, but that is the only reason and only part that we need to change in order to make United Nations actually function the way it's ideally supposed to function. Please go on. So the solution, I'll explain this though. Basically, firstly, broadly speaking, I want people to care about the world more than their nation. Simple as that. If people care about the whole world more than their nation, then this problem will be solved. But you cannot tell the people that's in war, the politician that's at the top, to do this. So I had to figure out a way how I can make a movement that would actually lead to for this kind of phenomena to occur. And kind of philosophically speaking, this is I always speak this to my friends by saying to love the whole humanity as one family, considering anybody as your brothers and sisters, regardless of the country you're from. And that goes same for people that is in conflict with you. If you are able to do that, you are able to unify with anybody. Please go on. So I will give you 2 examples, which you already know, that where human rights advancement have actually occurred. And one of them is what Martin Luther King did through nonviolent process of advancing civil rights between black and equality between African American and the whites, and also what Gandhi did against the British regime to be independent from British regime was also unification of the Indian people to stand up against the oppression that British colonization was exerting. And the commonality that I want you to take notice in these civil rights movement is that cooperation from individual sacrifice was what made these changes possible. Because all these movements had to involve individual sacrifice, because it does involve a lot of risk for individuals to get involved in the protest, because they had to boycott, they had to go against the regime, they had to sacrifice a lot of their time and effort and also safety and security in order to participate. But it really comes down to how much individual can make sacrifice in their personal level for the wellness of the whole community. And I don't want you to think sacrifice in a negative way, because it happens all the time in order for an organization to do well. Even in like sports team, like soccer, we have a lot of players working with different preference and way of playing, but we need to have one set of game plan that everybody can follow in order for the whole team to unite within the game plan and execute the game plan with unity, or else everybody's just going to play the way they want, and that's not going to be a functional or successful team. So for an organization to be successful, there always needs to be an individual sacrifice. So please go on. So I recognize that making individual sacrifice for the unification of whole is what I can do. Making people practice this mindset, practice this value, is going to be the solution that I can conclude as what I'm going to do to contribute to world peace. And here's this basically, yeah, you can go. This basically, I really realized that this is what exactly Congo Justice was doing in Las Vegas, because it really involved making individual organization sacrifice certain aspect of their self-centered intent for the sake of advancement of the whole society. Because as I recall, it's hard to make the whole community your priority, because you're more concerned about the survival of yourself. And that goes same for these organizations, because they were, if it was a religious organization, the leader of the organization was more concerned about making sure that people would give donation to their organization and not the organization that's next to them. If it was a non-profit organization, they wanted to make sure that their activities would get the credit. They're the one who's going to get credit for the activity that they do, so that institutions that are seeking to give donation would give donation to them. So there's like a lot of organizations that's working for the same issue, and there's like a church right next to, another church, but they still don't get affiliated with each other. They don't talk with each other, because what they say as their cause, as their motive to serve for the community, is not really done through its action. And I believe that Congo Justice, they really pushed the people, the organization, to overcome that kind of self-centered mindset to serve for the community. And thus it really did result in a civil rights movement successfully. So the formula that they have basically showed me is what I believe that I can do. So please go to the next. I will actually, this is what I'm going to most likely do after I graduate. I will work with Congo Justice and go to Tijuana, Mexico. I will initiate a project that will involve prevention of sex trafficking there. And it will be done with a similar approach of having locals and institutions work together. And this would also be an initiative to connect the first and the third world by making the cooperation happen between the people of the United States and the people of Mexico. And lastly, after I got back to Japan, with all these ideas, and I finally figured out what I'm going to do in the future. So I was like, okay, this is what I'll do, and this is how I contribute to world peace, and this is my idea, this is how I'm going to live my life. And I finally had that idea in my mind, and I had about 2.5 or 3 months left in Japan. And at this time, so it was spring and going towards summer, I was doing massive invitation of people to the dormitory that I was living in, which we call the International House. And the reason I was doing this was, well, it was a lot of fun talking to a lot of different people, so I was inviting different people to come to the dorm I was living in almost every day, at least every other day, and I would serve food for them. And the food I would serve is always food from different countries that I've experienced all around the world. And I was, again, thinking of finding someone that would want to work with me in the future, or have the mindset of wanting to become what I call global citizen, a person that can think him or herself as a person that belongs to the whole world, not to one community or one nation, but thinking the whole world as a sense of belonging. So I was really fortunate, and I believe this is the biggest achievement I considered on my own, because I was actually able to find a person that wants to become a global citizen. Go to the next slide. And basically, she will come to internship in Las Vegas for 1 year, because she really admired the way I have a lot of admiration to basically how I live and interact with people. So to end this, my achievement is that I have finally inspired someone to love the world more than their nation, and have that become their practice in their life. And lastly, yeah, my conclusion is that I will contribute to world peace by making people aspire to make individual sacrifice for the unification of the whole. And eventually I want to make that the whole world. Thank you so much.